So, thanks a lot for your time. I know it's the second session, second day and the penultimate session. I can understand the energy levels, but to make things interesting for you, we have two speakers, not one. And this is not going to be a presentation, it's going to be a conversation, three-way conversation. Of course, Brijesh and I will talk, but you're also free to join us, ask us any questions, and we can answer any of your questions. So to get things a little charged up, let me do the good evening again, and I would expect you to say good evening. Good evening. I think little better, yeah. Energy levels, right? Bonvita, imagine Bonvita and then do good evening again. Good evening. I think Bonvita advertising failed. Beer. Think of beer and do a good evening. Good evening. Anyway, let me start. So thanks a lot for your time. With that, let me introduce my co-speaker. Brijesh Miglani is our senior sales engineer based in Delhi. He manages the government space in Northeast. A very senior engineer, been with us for more than 5 years, a technical expert and also a trusted advisor to many government organizations across India. Brijesh?
Okay. So, hi everybody. Good evening. So, Ajay Dubey, he's our senior national manager with Forcepoint from last more than 5 years. Technical advisor to multiple companies, and he has a specialization in resolving multiple network security or distributed security problems. Okay, and today's agenda, as we mentioned, we will discuss more on the problem statement that we have heard from the last 2 days from the customers, from you directly. So I'll put it up few queries to Ajay, and you can also contribute and put your points to it. So Ajay, I think from the last 2 days I was hearing a common problems that there is a shift which has happened over cyber security from so many years. Okay, and government is also now getting involved into those transformations in network piece of it or cyber security piece of it. But the problem statements are still remains. So can you summarize what are the critical problem statements that are there for government organizations?
Yeah, I think you know what you and I have seen the past 2 days talking to some of you here. The cyber security challenges that people face today, right? One of the biggest challenges that people face today is data is stored everywhere, being accessed from everywhere. Be it any government department, the data is scattered. It's probably not stored in one place, it is stored in multiple places and being accessed from multiple places. The second big challenge from a security perspective, customers have told us that there are too many security products. Too many security products and they don't seem to be talking to each other. Products are disjoint, as a result of which it is difficult to apply a policy. The third problem that we have heard consistently, and this is one of the very big problems, is there are too many logs. There are too many events. You deploy any product, that product throws up a lot of events, a lot of logs. What do we do with so many logs? How do we make sense out of this? How do we get the exact ROI of our investment? And the fourth problem is cyber security is seen as a reactive solution. We have heard this consistently in this forum, also in the other forums, that we do so much of investment in cyber security, but when something goes wrong, right, we are in a reactive mode. There is no technology to come and tell us that this is likely to happen. There's no predictive technology. All cyber security solutions seem to be reactive in nature. So these are the 4 problems that we have heard. We heard about them yesterday while talking to some of you. We have heard about this in many other forums. And what is the solution? The solution to these problems is what is called the human point system. The human point system is a collection of multiple solutions, multiple products. These products talk to each other and they solve all the 4 problems that we discussed. The data could be lying in private cloud, the data could be lying in a public cloud, the data could be lying in data centers and being accessed from remote location, remote branches, doesn't matter, these solutions will solve it. all the four problems that we discussed, especially the third problem, too many logs, too many reports, what do I do? So we have built tools, technologies, solutions which will solve all the four problems.
This sounds interesting, Ajay, and it looks like a DNA structure altogether with multiple solutions you have stitched. But the major problem that I've seen from last 2 days while talking to multiple state representatives is the network, which is either MPLS, broadband and all. The feasibility of the network is not there across all the remote locations. And if it's there, the cost of that MPLS is very high. So do you have any solution which can address that particular pain area of a customer?
Yeah, that's a very common problem. In fact, I wasn't surprised when I heard that from Northeast customers that, we have connectivity issues, MPLS is not available everywhere, internet doesn't work. I wasn't surprised at all. But just to give you the other side of the story, in what we would like to call the other parts of India, even in a big city like Mumbai, there are connectivity issues. There are places where the building owner, let me give you an example. There's a government organization which is from the medical department. They're running their dispensary in the third floor of a big building in the heart of Mumbai, and the building owner does not allow them to put up a tower so that they can do an RF connection. The building owner does not allow them to dig and lay cables. There can be connectivity issues in Aizwal, it can be in Imphal, it can be in anywhere in Northeast, it can also be in Mumbai. It can also be in Delhi. In the state of Kerala, it's so advanced, they have OFCs lying everywhere, but then there are rivers. They sometimes just cannot cross a river body and connect a police station to the head office. So connectivity issues are there everywhere. Typically, when you look at any infrastructure, it looks like this. There is a hub and spoke or a star infrastructure. There is a central office. There are MPLS links that are connected, and these are ultimately connected either to internet or to Nixie. What we are proposing with our solution is to leverage the internet, of course, subject to internet being available. I know in some places internet is a challenge, but wherever internet is available, internet can be a substitute to MPLS. MPLS is expensive. MPLS has got limited bandwidth. Bandwidth in MPLS is small. So you're paying high for a small bandwidth. This problem can be reversed by going to broadband, by moving to internet. You will pay less, but get a much bigger connection. So does this raise any questions, Brijesh?
So SD-WAN, right? I think maybe, has anyone heard about SD-WAN as a technology? I want to just check from an audience. Have you heard what an SD-WAN do? Because I have few questions.
Yeah, please.
So when you say SD-WAN, now you will invest in multiple branches. So maybe take a case of SWAN, which have more than 300, 400 branches. How feasible it's to invest in branches and to also taken care the security piece as well, because they already have routers there. So how you manage this availability plus security piece from your SD-WAN boxes?
Well, that's a nice question, Brijesh. That brings me to this slide, which basically says that, what about security? If I'm leveraging broadband and internet, am I not vulnerable? Am I not at the risk of being hacked? So there comes the security. The SD-WAN solution on its own is risky. So we call it as a secure SD-WAN solution. Security gets baked in, gets built into this solution. And by having security, we can address all the problems that Brijesh just asked.
Okay. So I think I have heard yesterday that a person from a SWAN specifically saying that they have more than 300, 400 branches. So what about the manageability? Because when you say that you're providing these services, SD-WAN boxes across all the locations, how do you manage that? And do you have really a references, on-ground references for that?
Beautiful. So SD-WAN is a new technology. Secure SD-WAN is brand new. Right? It's like it's just been manufactured and it's out of factory. So secure SD-WAN is catching up. Worldwide, we have several customers. In India, we have limited customers, mostly in the defense space. We have BSF, we have CRPF, we have medical education organizations, the Director General of Medical Education. We have Assam Rifles here in Northeast, which is using this technology. So what is this technology? The SD-WAN technology basically can handle multiple links. right? You can have multiple ISPs that can be directly terminated onto the box in active mode. When you have multiple ISPs being terminated onto your box in an active mode, and then the links can be terminated directly, you don't need a router. This removes the need of a router. So it can replace your edge router. Your edge router is not required. This can act as a router. It handles all the links directly. Now, this has a built-in firewall because it's got we need to provide security because it is on internet. And of course, just not a firewall, it also comes with an intrusion prevention system. So the SD-WAN appliance can handle multiple links, active mode, and consists of a router, a SD-WAN solution, a firewall, and an IPS, all built into one solution. Now, when there are multiple links, you can do link load balancing, you can do link aggregation, you can do quality of service, and a whole lot of other networking, connectivity-related features and functionalities.
Okay, this sounds good, but what about the highly distributed network where there is no skills at the branch level? So adopting this kind of solution in highly distributed environment is managing that is maybe another challenge for the states.
Absolutely, I think we are very sensitive to the fact that this technology will be deployed by organizations which have low or no IT skills in the remote ends. When you have no or low IT skills in the remote end, this technology allows, or this technology in other words disallows, you cannot do any configuration in the remote end. At the remote end, it has to be just plugged in. You need to provide electricity and you need to provide internet. It configures everything automatically. Everything is done from the central location. Every configuration, including sending the first IP address, is done from the central location. That's the beauty about the technology, that it leverages, right? It leverages the need or the requirement that customers like you have, wherein you have no IT skills in remote. Imagine managing 200 branches or 200 nodes, right? You don't need to send people to remote end just to do configuration. Everything is done from a central location.
Okay, so there are multiple technologies that came in a network security paradigm, starting from a UTM, firewall, next generation firewalls. Now you are talking about SD-WAN with firewall capabilities. Why still those solutions are not able to address the problems? Still there is a breaches, still there is a DOS attacks, still there are those problems which are there. So what do you think is missing in those technologies which you are going to cover within SD-WAN?
Yeah, I'd like to give two answers to it. One is, just look at my reference customers, right? The people who use our technology, the firewall and the SD-WAN technology that we have, our key users, our biggest users, consumers of this technology are all defense organizations. Here in Northeast, we have more than 50 boxes deployed all across BSF, CRPF, Assam Rifles, right? We have Indian Army, we have the US Army as one of our biggest customers, we have the Canadian Army, we have the Australian Army. A lot of these defense forces use our technology. That's the primary reason is because we are number one in security. We are number one in security. Look at the NSS Lab report. The NSS Lab report very clearly puts us right at the top. Not yesterday, not today, from the past 6 years. There are 190 ways in which a firewall can be hacked. You name the firewall, you do a Google, you do a YouTube search, or you go to the dark web, your firewall can be breached. Sometimes it costs $1, sometimes it costs $20, but any firewall, or let me say, most of the firewalls in the market can be breached. There are tools and techniques available. These are called evasions. There are 190 ways in which a firewall can be hacked. Some of the firewalls can prevent some methods, not all firewalls. There is no firewall other than the Forcepoint firewall which can block all 190 known ways in which a firewall can be evaded. That gives us close to 100%. Nobody can give full 100%. It gives you 99.87% block of all attacks. So that's the kind of security that we provide. It's the most secure appliance that you can have.
So you mentioned, how about so what I have heard within a SWAN is that because SWAN is highly distributed, they have a security controls applied in the central locations. What about a machine which is generating a big, you can say, communications, heavy connections to an internal application server? How you will control those kind of things with your network security technology?
Yeah, I think that's where the IPS comes into picture. The intrusion prevention system gives you world-class technology. The firewall gives you the world's strongest firewall. IPS gives you the smartest IPS available. Together, it gives you the most secure combination. These are some of the features that we have on our appliance. All these features are available to customers in a single license. You know, unlike any of our competitors, we do not have multiple licenses. So if you buy the box, you get all the features, all firewall, IDS, SD-WAN, routing capabilities, decryption, SSL, everything is built into one. And addressing what Brijesh just asked, one of the unique features that nobody offers, probably you would have never heard of this feature, is called as ECA. ECA stands for Endpoint Context Aware, wherein we can allow an end machine sitting in some remote place to connect to our head office, connect to our server only if that machine meets certain criteria. For example, you can say, does this machine belong to my domain? Does this machine run the latest my brand of antivirus? Does this machine have the antivirus updated as of today morning? Only if this machine is my machine and it is a clean machine, I will allow connection. Otherwise, I will give him a message saying your machine is not updated. You get your machine updated and then join the network. Or I can say, okay, this machine, I will connect to the network, but not give any access, take him to internet, get his machine signatures updated, then give him access if the machine is clean. So this is called as endpoint, very similar to NAC. People confuse this with NAC. You know, I don't see any difference between NAC and this, but then this is not NAC. This is only for endpoint. You know, you can say it is NAC for endpoint. So only at the endpoint, it looks at compliance. And if the compliance is matched, it allows access, otherwise it blocks. And ladies and gentlemen, this feature also is part of our bundled base license. There is no additional license required. What we are also doing is we are coming up with what is called as a unified agent. So one agent, you know, if you are our DLP customer or if you're using any of our other products, they can all be available in a single agent. So there is no need for you to deploy multiple agents for multiple activities. This is the IPS that you were asking about, Brijesh. So this gives you, so the firewall will take care of all the known 190 ways of evading a firewall. The IPS will look at behavior and signature based, so it can block all known and unknown attacks. So the IPS and the firewall put together, that's why it's called next generation firewall. So both in the SD-WAN and in the firewall solution gives you complete 100% security. Like I just told you, a testimony of defense customers, BSF, CRPF using us, there cannot be any other testimony of our security rather than the customers who use us. So with that, Brijesh, let us change roles. Maybe you can go that side. I will come back to this side. We'll switch gears. We'll get into a different. We'll get into the data protection space. Before that, for all those of you who are not sleeping, can you tell anyone if you heard of DLP, data leakage prevention? Show of hands. Nodding of head is also accepted. I know it is sometimes very difficult. Northeast is a cold place. People don't want to raise their hands. I saw some nerds. So, does anybody use DLP? No, okay. Then we can talk about DLP. Anything I can talk. No, I'll talk the right thing. So, some of the questions we spoke to some of you yesterday, between the drinks. I don't know how many of you understood the question. And between the music. Anyway, so one of the questions was, does DLP work for government? DLP solution we have heard of, but is it useful for government? Brijesh, what do you think? He's a DLP expert.
So Ajay, to be very frank, each and every government customers that they have attended, the first question that I heard from that, they are not aware what is their confidential information. And they are not liable to it. So if we are meeting a CISOs of the company or the person who is heading the SDCs and other critical information centers, they say they are not aware because the major challenge that they face, and the myth is that for effective DLP, you need to have a data classification in place. I'm not denying the fact that data classification is not in place, but yes, there are ways where you can first have a visibility to identify a data, first has the assessment of your infrastructure over the various channels to understand what is the data leaving your organizations. That should be the first step. Data classification definitely comes into that stages, multiple stages, but the first thing is how to identify your data. And when you say anything which is related to informations, carrying these parameters, so who you need to protect, what information you need to protect, where the data classification plays a role, where you want the information should not go. Now that where can be any channel, and how. How means the ways where it is accessed, whether it's accessed over a web, over an endpoint, over email, and what is the action you need to perform. So first, on a initial phase, if you're able to map these parameters, who, what, where needs to be protected, you can go into a stage one and start evaluating your data security solutions. Okay? So that is the first stage. Now,
So
when
Brijesh,
you go into that stage, you need to be very cautious that you assess the risk from your network or from your endpoint.
Yeah, can you just go back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
So this is basically who, what, where, and how. So one of the people from the audience in one of my sessions like this, they told me a way to remember this. They said, how to remember this? The best way to remember this is H and 3 Ws. One husband had 3 wives. Ladies might not like it, but it can be other way around. 3 wives had 1 husband. Okay, next slide, please. This is dangerous now. So the next question that we came across was, are there any government organizations using DLP, and what kind of organizations?
So organizations that have adopted our DLP solutions are definitely starting from a financial organizations like ITBA, CBAC, organizations which are into power sectors, organizations which are managing the state data centers. They are heavily adopting a data security solutions. Now that data security solution can be at any layer, but yes, they are adopting it, they are monitoring it, and then few of the customers are all at that stage where they are blocking those things as well.
Okay, and what type of sectors, which sectors use DLP? Is it health or
So
power?
sectors starting from, as I mentioned, the financial sectors, health sectors, power sectors. If you go into an enterprise, it's into a BFSI, manufacturing, all those are using a data security. And I'll tell you, if currently the government says that they may not have a need of it, we'll wait for December to have a DPR as a law passed. We will see more of data security initiatives driving in government state sectors as well.
So interestingly, a couple of people who yesterday when we met, people who understand DLP and who are using DLP. So the questions that they told us was, DLP seems to be very static in nature. You do a configuration, assuming certain things, but when those assumptions change, when there is a change in the landscape, does DLP, then DLP obviously will not work. So how do we handle that dynamic environment?
So correct, Ajay. I think the major challenge who have adopted a DLP are facing is that if they block something on a data layer or an information security layer for a particular user, the user will start facing the issues and making it that they are losing their credibility to the organizations. So now we are moving into putting a DLP along with the analytics, where we'll say, okay, let's assess the data risk along with the risk of the user. So we have an analytics platforms, which we call as an incident risk ranking, that whatever the activities that are happening over a data leaks, let risk them based on the user behavior. So take an example, a lady, Priya, in this, who is a joint director, needs to give a presentation to a project committee and wants to save something on a USB. In a normal DLP case, if she will do something, that DLP will block those actions and she will not able to store that data to a USB for business purpose, which increase dissatisfaction to the user, and also the acceptability of the DLP goes down within the organizations. So what we have done is, we created a risk level grouping, which is purely on an analytics base. And we say, let this lady is in a low risk group, where when she is copying a sensitive data, let that data will be encrypted while moving to a USB. And as soon as the activities that she is performing, if she is doing bulk copy, if she is doing the activities when she is not in the office, all those activities make her behavior more vulnerable, and that gives that moving her from low risk group to a high risk group, and this all happen in dynamic in nature. So DLP is now no more static. It's a dynamic adaptive policies that you can also apply by monitoring the data as well as risk behavior.
Okay, yes ma'am.
It's
Already time up. One last question.
30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds, last question. So this is a genuine life problem, right? So if a username password of a user is compromised, so is there technology available, right? You are sitting in the central office, somebody from the remote is logging in. How do you differentiate between a genuine user using a genuine password logging in versus a fake user using a genuine password logging in? Is there ways to do it? We have 30 seconds.
Yeah, so as I said, the next generation is completely shifting to analytics, machine learning, AI and all. So now the solutions are there. Like I'll take a small example of a state data center where they have multiple servers managing from a third-party companies, and the data center manager is not aware that what they are doing. So no user behavior monitoring because the trust is established. Now if you are monitoring a behavior of a user, if you know what is the baseline of that user, how from which locations they log in, then you can have a visibility to understand what is a normal login, what is the login which is compromised by an account takeover or a brute force. Okay, so and the technologies are there to reach the forensics with the actual DVR as well. So you can have actual DVR at that time when the user has done something. By looking at DVR, it will build more context and more intent why the user has done this activity. So that's a shift which is happening in data security as a technology.
Okay, so with that we are done. We had one more question, but then madam here is going to
We can take that offline,
push us off the stage, and we will not be able to talk. So, so thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for bearing with us, and we are available. So any questions, or if you want to give us a purchase order, we are ready to collect it outside. Thank you.